that sent them. They're the place where we were first called Christians, and that's the Church of Antioch. And you may ask the question, why do we send our
Hey church family, it's Rita Cochran here. I serve as the director of our women's ministry at the Church of Christ in Green Hills, but what you might not know about me is that I also serve on the board of directors at Healing Hands International, and I'm very excited that we have an upcoming Walk for Water event scheduled coming up October the 1st. It's going to be registration at 3:30, walk beginning at 4 o'clock. I hope all of you are making plans to come out and walk along with us. You're welcome to gather up a team. You're welcome to come as an individual. But we want you to come and walk and support this effort. Our hope is to raise enough money to drill a well in a country who severely lacks clean water. And they're depending on us for this. So I hope you'll mark your calendars right now. Plan to put on your walking shoes. Come out October the 1st, right here at the Church of Christ in Green Hills, and walk with us.
Their last name is Meliritos. We call them Meleritos, but they have been there, as far as I recall, since the early 90s. Well, they were here, and then they went back to Greece, because they're native from Greece, and they've been working and at the Omonia Church. So Omonia, it's a place in central Athens. Omonia, it's more recently, it has been the epicenter of all of the refugees that have come to Greece. I don't know how much you know about the refugee situation, but Greece has been the gateway to Europe from people from all over, the Middle East, Ukraine, Africa, Afghanistan, from all over the world. Basically, people get to Greece first, and then from there they seek asylum in other places in Europe. So Omonia, it's the neighborhood where a lot of these people from other places have established themselves. That is the place in which they lived right at the beginning. So Alex and Eleni have had a very good opportunity to use their ministry, or to transform, if I may, their ministry to serve all of these people that have arrived to Athens. Back in 2019, my wife and I had a chance to go and visit them. Back then we were not part of the missions committee. We were just traveling through Europe, and we said, okay, let's go and see them. And we had a great opportunity to get to know some of the Syrian refugees. A lot of stories you hear from them. They've gone through a lot of pain, a lot of suffering. Obviously, a lot of them, or most of them, if not all of them, don't have Christian backgrounds, right? They're Muslim, and they never met a Christian in their lives. So when they get to know Alex and Eleni, that was very revealing to them. How people, how Christians can be very, very open, very warm, very interested in helping with their needs, right? So that was very life-changing. We get to know some people from Syria, some of them with terrible stories, because war is terrible. But then what happens a lot is that they will get asylum, and they will have to move somewhere else in Europe. So some of these people that we met, they're now in Germany, they're in the Netherlands, they're in Switzerland, they're in all over Europe, right? And here's the interesting thing, and I find it very interesting, that they get to know Christ, they get to know Jesus in Greece with Alex and Eleni, and then they go and they start meeting at churches everywhere in Europe, right? They start meeting, and some of the ministers in the churches that they attend to, they're really surprised of the level of knowledge and commitment that they have, right? I mean, that is something that, I mean, they gave us a story of a couple of Syrian, well, they're now Syrian teenagers, very smart kids, that are now teaching the children's classes at a church in Germany, right? So it is amazing how a lot of doors open due to this. Terrible situations had led to good things for them, I would say. But more recently, they've had a lot of influx of Ukrainian refugees, right? So last year, Beth and I had a chance to go and visit them for the retreat, and there were a lot. I mean, around 40, I would say 40 people that recently left Ukraine. So most of them were women and children. Men, if they did not had a chance to leave before the war, they had to stay there and fight, right? So there were a lot of women with kids, and
so let me go back. Can y'all hear this, Mike? Let's talk about this for a second, Julio. You bring up a great point. Here we are. We're visiting a mission point. And a lot of people that are coming into Greece, it has become very much a melting pot and a gateway into Europe, like you said. But I'm fascinated with this. You know, over here in the United States, studying Scripture, there's churches almost on every corner, at least here in the Bible Belt. And there's opportunity. Most of us have a number of Bibles in our home. But think about this, how many times because we're so saturated with it, do we become almost blind to it? Whereas, as you were saying, the refugees that is new and fresh, it seems like it's like life-giving water that they've never experienced before. And I find that fascinating with a mission field. You know, you're talking about those two young teenagers.
Yep.
I believe you said from Syria.
From Syria, yeah. That they're in Germany and they're teaching Bible class now.
But now they're teaching Bible classes because they were so immersed into understanding and knowing Scripture.
Yes.
You know, it makes me think about this. That I think about the lot of God's people, right? If we go even from the beginning to God choosing the nation of Israel, or the Jewish people, or the Hebrew people. Hebrew actually comes from an ancient Aramaic word, habiru, which means wanderer. I think that's fascinating. But how many times do we see God's people fall in and out of love with God? All the time, right? What is God constantly doing to bring him back? How many times do God's people have to go through difficulties? So, do you think that maybe these Assyrian people that are coming to know the difficulty helps spur them on to a relationship with God?
Absolutely. You know, and one thing that us as Christians have, and a lot of other faiths don't, is faith, actually. You know, hope.
Yeah.
Hope. I mean, that is, you know, we are the people of hope. You know, we should be the people of hope. And a lot of them don't really understand them. I mean, it's not part of what they live with. They haven't grown knowing about the hope. You know, the hope for that God provides to us. And
it makes me think of a story. Mike, do you remember the lady we built a house for in Honduras? And she was really small, tiny lady. And at the end of every house build, it was always a kind of a thing that we would do where we would have a ceremony where we'd give the keys to the homeowner, we'd pray for him, it would be a big to-do. And I remember praying for this lady, and she stops me after the prayer, and she's speaking pretty frantically. Of course, I don't know any Spanish. And my translator says, well, she says she's praying for you. And I said, oh, that's so nice. And my arrogance thought, we're the answer to her prayers. Isn't that great? We're the answer to her prayer. She's thanking me for coming. And even though Mike built the house, I was here, I was in charge, and I feel good about it. And my ego feels pretty puffed up. And she could tell how I was by just my expression. Yep. And she was going, no. And so I was like, well, okay, let me hear a little more. And she spoke a little more. My translator says, she says, no, she's praying for your faith. And I was like, my faith? That's why I'm even here. That's what's brought me here. And then she's like, no. And then finally she said this, I pray every day for food, for shelter, for safety. You have so much. Why do you pray? And I really thought about this idea for mission work. A lot of times we go to these places that are so thirsty. It's like dry ground and pouring water out that they soak it up that you can't even see mud.
Yep.
They're so thirsty and we're so saturated that sometimes we have to be brought to a light. It has to have that light bulb moment. And I think that's what we're talking about with us, with the church there in Ammonia that's become such a mission-minded church.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I was thinking, well, those Syrian kids that are now teaching, children in Germany, they were probably the answer of a prayer of someone in Germany.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
I mean, we don't know the way God is going to answer our prayers, but 2 Syrian kids are doing that.
Isn't that incredible?
No, amazing.
Let's talk about this, Julio. Talk to us. 5 of us, we go and we're to help put on a retreat.
Yep.
That they do yearly. I think what year was it? 18 or 19 years in a row?
No, I think we're gonna see it, and I think the next slide has the
number of years.
Yeah.
But why would we go?
No, it does not.
18th annual.
No, 18th. Yes, 18th.
Why would we go help put on a retreat? For a church in Greece.
Well, it's once we talked about the retreat with someone and said, well, it's at the beach, it's in Corinth. And say, well, is it like a family spa day? And well, not really, right?
No,
not really,
no.
not really, not at all. I mean, it's the setting is really nice. Now the talking to people in Greece, they were very surprised at us, people coming from America. We will go to Corinth because that is apparently not the fancy place to go. I mean,
no.
having all of the islands in Greece, I said, why in the world would you go there, right? Now you can see right there, it's beautiful, right? It's beautiful, but mostly the purpose of this retreat is for us to be in a place where we're a little further out, and we had a chance to be together as much time as possible.
Yeah.
It's the people that attend this retreat, a lot of them are in dire need of love and of someone that can listen to them and someone that can care for them.
Yeah, and the schedule was pretty rigorous.
Yes, oh my goodness, yes.
We had morning sessions, we had afternoon sessions, we had evening sessions.
Yeah.
Julio, you and I both spoke at least twice, 3 times, I believe. It wasn't this time where it wasn't a like you said, a family vacation. We were actually deep into the Word of God.
Yeah, there's youth,
this is great. This is right before we baptized 6 Ukrainian refugees, and we're talking to them about what they're about to do and how it's going to change their life forever. And then Julio got a chance to speak as well. This was great. Julio and I had a chance to help with that baptism. But Julio, you can't swim, is that correct?
Yeah, I'm not very good at it, or not at all.
And so here we are in the sea, and we're supposed to go out deep enough to baptize them. And I was like, I was watching out for Julio the whole time as well, because I was thinking I might have to save him.
Yeah, I was there kind of in the middle, working as the anchor, I guess, making sure that people were able to get in and out, but it was a great experience. It was a great experience.
So about 35 or 40 total people at the retreat, I believe.
Yes. I think around 40.
Yeah, but that wasn't the only thing we did. We were there 5 days? Is that right? 4 days?
Four, yeah.
For the retreat. Prior to that, we actually worked with the church in Ammonia there in downtown Athens. Corinth was about a 45 hour bus ride from Athens.
Yeah. We drive west of Athens, and we get to Corinth. But yeah, going back to the schedule, the first time we went there was a little bit of a gap at midday, and say, hey, we have downtime, right? So here's the thing. Here's what happens during midday. It's very hot, right? So it is very hard for us to do activities during those hours. I don't know, from 2 to 4 or something like that. But we have some pictures in the slideshow, and you will see it. We will do things at night, and when everything cools off, we will be there at night, and we will stay there for until later.
Yeah, it was 10 or 11 o'clock each night where we were finally going, I got to go to bed because we got to get up for an 8 o'clock session.
We got to get up at 5:30, or something.
So it was really intense but great. The ladies, Michelle, Audrey Beth, and Beth all helped with the children's classes and did a great job. And you could even see one of our night sessions there.
Yep. We were there, and yeah.
Here's a little bit of a misnomer. That's Alex receiving his birthday gift from Beth and Julio. They brought him Tennessee socks. And for some reason, he thought his ears needed to daunt them. So here's an interesting thing when you talk about just the retreat itself and the work and just everything we did. There were several different dialects there. It wasn't just one language. And so all of us would have earpieces that would be translated, and you would speak, if it were English, the English would go to Greek, and then Greek would go into Russian, but don't dare call it Russian while you were there because they were all Ukrainians, and they were very upset if you called it Russian, though it was Russian. But there are several different dialects, and should that hamper or hinder you from doing mission work just because you can't speak the language?
No, I mean it's obviously communication gets a little complicated, but there is, and we build very good relationships with a lot of the people from the retreat that don't speak a word of English, and we don't speak a word of Russian, but yet we were able to have those relationships. I remember you doing the translator, right?
Yeah, that was really neat. I've never experienced that before. There was a Ukrainian lady that we baptized later in the week, and one of the very first days where I'm sitting beside her at night, and we're sitting in the circle. And there's an awkwardness when you can't speak, and you do as much as you can non-verbally. You smile, you nod your head a lot. Now, I was getting frustrated, and finally I decided I have a cell phone. And so I just started working with a translator on the cell phone, and I was amazed at how good that conversation went back and forth just using a cell phone to be my translator.
Yeah, I mean, you put it so that they can pick up speech, and communication happens like that, which is amazing.
Yeah, it didn't hinder the connection or the communication. As a matter of fact, it probably built even a bond as we were starting to work to each other, and just the relief from both of us, the facial expressions, when we're like, I can understand what they're saying, and that was really, really good. But it does bring me to this point. How important is it for missionaries that we support to be completely caught up in the language, to be
100%.
I mean, why is that so important, do you think?
Well, if you live in a foreign country, you need to be able to communicate and to connect and to relate to all the people, And I remember conversations with Eleni that they say, okay, it's the so-and-so person needs to go and talk to a lawyer and talk to immigration or talk to a doctor, So how can you help, someone that speaks Ukrainian, if I may, someone that speaks Ukrainian, they cannot go by themselves to a government. I mean, if we go to a government office here, sometimes it's hard to communicate. Right now, think about someone from a different country that doesn't speak the language. Well, that becomes basically impossible, right? So for everyday living, they need to help, and there's a lot of ways in which they help.
How many of you have ever spent a day at the DMV? Anybody in here?
Yeah.
Can you imagine if you couldn't speak English there and how much more difficult it would be when it's already crazy difficult, right? Anyway, I can't even imagine.
And government offices in Greece are a little less efficient. If you think the DMV is bad, well, I mean, it's...
Yeah.
So we worked at the church. What are some of the things we did at the church in Athens before we went to the...
Well, one of the things, it's the church building. Well, it is a building, but it's a floor in a building, right? It is not like a standalone building here. So I was mentioning earlier, Omonia, it's a central neighborhood, so most of the structures you will see are buildings, right? I don't know, 4, 5, 6 stories high, and bunch of them for blocks and blocks, right? So the church at Omonia is located at the first floor of one of those buildings. It's right off a very important road, my main road, if I may say. It's called the Piraeus Road. That road leads all the way to the port, to the ancient port of Piraeus, and back in the day when Athens was in its splendor, that road was walled, from Athens to the port, so that they would bring more safety, more security. Now, obviously, nowadays they don't need a wall for safety. It's all open, but it's a historic road. So the church is in the first floor, and they were renting the second floor as well. So that second floor was the place in which a lot of the activities with the refugees happened. Back in 2019, when Beth and I had a chance to go there, I had a chance to teach a class. Refugees, conversational English. Sure, I'll volunteer. Beth volunteered with the babies. They were giving clothes. They were giving a lot of stuff for the people that needed. So that second floor had that function. Last year, when we went back, Beth and I, that second floor was housing people temporarily, right? So a lot of the people from Ukraine that didn't have anywhere to go, they went and stayed in that second floor. Now, unfortunately, the landlord, the owner of that second floor, asked them to vacate the second floor because I don't know what they're gonna do. So they gave a date in the future, but then they start cutting the days, so they pretty much said, okay, by the end of the week, that space needs to be empty. And well, we volunteered to go and get rid of some of the stuff that were there.
2 men without a truck is what we became. Or what is it, the hunks for moving? Or
yeah, of course.
2 good-looking guys. So we became movers. But that, when you do mission work, sometimes you do things that are, we went to go to teach, right? But sometimes what's needed is manual labor, right? And so we cleaned, we moved furniture.
Mattresses, we moved, a washer, was it, and a dryer?
But, really, even doing the manual labor stuff as a part of it, your mission is really to encourage the mission.
Yes.
And so you've got to be willing to do whatever you can do to encourage what's going on there. And so you spend lots of time, you worship with them, you go to dinner with them, you spend time putting your arm around them and laughing, and you hope that you leave there with them being filled with the love of Christ. And
in this case, I know both Alex and Eleni really needed that relief.
Yes.
They were going through. That was just think part or one of the main focus of their ministry in the last 5-10 years has been that second floor. Suddenly they need to empty it. Suddenly, all of the relationships, all of the outreach that they had built with the community, suddenly it's gone because you don't have a place to do it. Right? So that was a big loss for them. That was a big loss for them. But let me give the epilogue of the story.
I like the way you say story. Say it again.
Story.
Yeah, I like it.
Beth, my wife, had a conversation with Eleni yesterday, and I don't know if you're aware, but Greece had some terrible floodings. Some of the worst floodings that they've had in the recent memory. Somewhere in northern Greece, a lot of people lost everything. Mud went into their homes. The agricultural land it's going to take years and years to recover. Eleni, of course, tireless worker. She has been there several times. Beth was telling me that it takes her 11 hours to go help people and then come back to Athens. So 11-hour days to go and do that. And a lot of the mattresses and other things that they had in the second floor, they donated to the people that lost everything in the flood.
Oh, wow.
So you know, even though the second floor is no longer there, the items that were used are still being used by people that need it, and you know, well, that's a blessing for them.
Well, we were very blessed because while we were there, even though it was hot, they weren't going through some of the incredible weather that they experienced, because right after we left, of course, there were massive wildfires.
Yes.
And then after the massive fires came the floods, which, as you can imagine, think about this massive wildfire that burns everything. Mike, as an engineer, you know, you have to deal with green space all the time, right? To take care of what? Water, right? Your green space, well, I'm probably making that too simple, but you can imagine if you've lost so much of your greenery because of fire, how much more horrific flooding will become, or how much more difficult it can be.
Yep.
So we worked with the church, we encouraged, we worshiped with, we went on a 4-day retreat, we taught classes, we worked with the kids, we had a great opportunity to bring 6 new Christians into a life with Christ, being filled with the Spirit after baptism. But we also got to do some really neat things, like experience the culture.
Yes.
Talk to me a little bit about Greek culture.
Yeah. Well, the Greeks are very lively people. You know, me being from Mexico, I kind of relate a little bit to that. You know, it's I might not be as lively as some other Hispanics, you know, but Greeks are you know, they're loud, they like to talk, they like to eat, they like to hang out with people, you know, and it's a very nice thing to experience.
Yeah, a meal becomes much more than a meal.
Oh yes. You're not there. It's not just functional. It's you stay there and talk, you know. And by the end of our trip, we were doing the same thing, right?
Right. and still to this day.
Oh yeah. Still to this day, yeah.
The meals become much more. So we get to experience the culture.
Yes.
It is a melting pot of cultures there in Athens. One of my favorite things we got to do while in Corinth, Elaine took us to see and walk through ancient Corinth. And for me personally, not only the mission work itself, but getting to see some of the things that I've read in my Bible studies my whole life, and walk those footsteps and know that my feet were exactly where Paul's feet were. And that was really impressive. And it was an incredible encouragement to me, but I felt like it was really an encouragement to Elaine and others to get to share this with us as well. And just to see some of the sights were just unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't have, Beth and I didn't have a chance to go to Corinth this time, but we went there last year, you know, and it's the same thing. You know, I mean, you're standing in a place where, so, you know, this is where, in Scripture it says that Paul was addressing the people of Corinth, right here, you know.
Oh yeah, we're at the Bema, and you're like, this is the Bema? And you're like, this is the Bema. Or like, we first get to the parking lot, and Elaine goes, well, there's a stone with Erastus' name on it that's down that hill, but that's not a part of the actual exhibit you walk through. Do you want to go down there? It's like, absolutely do I want to go down there. You know, I want to see that stone where you read his name at the end of Romans, where it says Erastus, the director of public works, and I'm standing at the stone, and it's Erastus, the director of public works. And I can't help but think, wow. This picture right here, let's talk about that for a second. That was actually the Stoa.
The Stoa.
And it was actually taken from Mars Hill. And that one probably got me the most. As we're standing on Mars Hill and you're walking around, and finally somebody goes, hey, you're actually on Mars Hill. And I'm like, this is Mars Hill? This is it?
Yeah, this is it, yeah.
Because, I was expecting, you know, there to be like an angel come down and go, this is Mars Hill or something, but that doesn't happen. But you're standing there and you're just like, wow. So you turn over to Acts 17, and it gets very emotional as you think about the Apostle Paul, you know, proclaiming the gospel of Christ. And that picture of the Stoa, if you saw to the left there were all those basins for where statues would have been standing. And I can't help but think about Paul standing up from where that picture was taken and looking down to see the statue to an unknown God. And you can't help but just become emotional as you think about how this is where it happened.
Yep.
This is where it happened.
Exactly.
So that was also something I thought was very, very encouraging for me, but also I think for them to experience with us.
And I was thinking. I mean, you see the Acropolis nowadays and it looks impressive.
Yeah.
I just think 2,000 years ago that probably looked even more impressive. And that's where Paul was, and
I think there's a picture that's going to be in our worship period where the Acropolis is lit up at night and it's during the day.
Impressive.
We got to eat dinner. I think the first Sunday we were there, we're eating dinner and we're basically right underneath the Parthenon. And you just were, I mean, I don't know, it's this weird feeling of that's it. There it is, this
there it is, yeah.
wonder of the world. And of course, we're very tied here to Nashville. All of you know that we have a replica of the Parthenon just down on West.
Parthenon, yep.
Yeah, West End. But to think that's the original, and to think about what Christians experienced here, the seaport. I never can say the name correctly that we baptized those refugees in.
Sancria.
Good job.
Yeah.
Was the very same seaport that Paul said goodbye to the elders of Corinth. And where you may know the story where he shaved his head. And there was something that just hit you as you're standing in that water and you look to your right and you see some of the ruins from that seaport and think, I don't know about you, but sometimes I get very frustrated with people who go, I just don't want to believe it. No thanks. That's not real. And I'm going,
oh, it's right there.
It's right there. It's real. It's real. What were some other things that you really enjoyed on the trip? Besides, of course, the mission work, what were some other places that you enjoyed seeing?
Well, I mean, other than Athens proper and the area of Corinth, well, we went to see Ephesus.
We did.
Yeah.
Ephesus, wow.
I don't know if any of you have had that opportunity, but I would say Scott and I strongly recommend you all to go. It's I think out of the ancient sites is the one that has the best preserved ruins. So it is a very, very large site. And once
still
you're there,
an active dig. It's
no, they're
one
still
of the
digging.
largest active digs for archaeology in the world.
And you see little mounds here and there, and say, well, there's buildings right underneath that, So they just need to dig them out, But you see the library, beautiful facade, and you see the marketplace. But we also had a chance to see from a little far away the amphitheater.
Yeah, of course you remember the story what happened in Ephesus, the riot that happened in Ephesus. Jim, you probably preached on this often before in your history. Do you remember how many hours that they chanted together? 25,000. Wasn't it 2 hours? Matter of fact, if you go back and you look at Acts, a city official had to come get them to stop because they were afraid that they were going to be all arrested because they were so against what they were hearing about this guy named Jesus.
Yeah.
It was so impressive.
No, and again, for us nowadays, seeing 25,000 people at once, it's impressive.
Sure.
Back then, when population was, population was not as high as what it is right now, and having a place to have 25,000 people at the same, that's state of the art. That was top technology, top science of the day.
Yeah.
And there was Paul, right?
Yeah, I mean, there was a couple of times when we're in Corinth and we go on the back side to the temple to Apollos, and there's the agora, right? And this is where they would sit. And we're seeing these shop areas. And Eleni goes, well, this would have been the area where Priscilla and Aquila and Paul would have sold tents. And I'm like, right here, would have been the area. And I think about even, Corinth had quite a bit of, what Paul's there for a year and a half. He writes the book of Romans from Corinth. And I couldn't help but think about, their slow days at the tent shop. I wonder if Paul sat there with a scroll and a quill. That was impressive.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say we also had a chance to go to Patmos. So for those of you that know, that's the place where John had the revelation. Right?
Yeah.
And we actually went to the place where tradition says that John actually had the cave in which he received and wrote the revelation. And it was a surreal experience.
It was very surreal. And a lot of times we want to look at tradition and say, oh, that's just tradition. But you forget some of these traditions, as Sager has mentioned to us before, go all the way back to 300. Mm-hmm. You're not talking about things that don't have a long history of tradition. And a lot of times tradition have a lot of weight and accuracy. In this cave on Patmos, they actually had a place where they said that here's the place where John would have slept, and here's the shelf where he would have written the scroll. How many of you have actually been to that cave before? A couple. And you couldn't take pictures inside the cave.
Yeah.
I think Mike Cochran, as you would expect, actually while on his trip did. I don't know how he didn't get arrested, but he's got it on his phone in case you want to see it. But what you could do, this may be a little weird for some of you, you could rub your hand on that shelf where that scroll would have rested. And there was just something that felt, again, it was almost like, you can't even explain it with words. Mm-hmm. You go out of the cave and there's a lot of times where you're just quiet as you just are contemplating and thinking about. Now, Patmos is way more beautiful than I expected, though.
Oh, yes.
I was like, you got exiled to Patmos? Oh, how terrible. It wouldn't have been that terrible. It's pretty beautiful there.
Yes,
so.
no, and it doesn't have as many tourists as some of the other sites. So it was actually a place where you could walk and you can see things and you can, well, obviously the cave attracts a lot of people, but it's not massive,
It is, it's funny, it's quite a windy road up to the cave.
And uphill.
And the best way that you get there is by taxi.
Yeah.
And most of these taxi drivers, I think, have spent time on the NASCAR tour. So you do get some excitement along the way. So in case you like, fast cars and drive, you would enjoy that trip a lot. Some on our trip didn't enjoy that quite as much.
Yeah, no, we were okay. Right?
We were okay. We were okay. What were some other impressions? I mean, we have just a few minutes left. I think we have 4 minutes left. There's so many other mission sites that we have.
Sure.
What were your impressions on what we did there, and what's next? What should we do next?
Sure. I always think that what Alex and Eleni do, it's a great work. I mean, I mentioned it one time, the hands and feet of Jesus. Well, I think that's what they're doing. And they're bringing hope and they're bringing a new vision to people that are in dire need. That people that are hungry and thirsty for the gospel, and that is a great thing. Now, also time goes on, right? And Eleni, well, both of them, but especially Eleni, because she's the one that comes and goes. Hasn't had a lot of rest in many years.
Right.
And it is important for her to rest, but she will not do it because she knows, well, there's a lot of things to do, so someone needs to do it. But just keep them in your prayers, because they need that. It's at some point we're gonna give you the contact information for them. Drop them a line. You can email them. They speak perfect English. They will get back to you, and they will be very, very encouraged by that. And well, they're also looking into the future, because they know they're not going to be there forever.
Right.
And they're trying to find out someone that can take over their work. Now their church, as we mentioned earlier, is not like this church that we have members and people that live and work there, and we could have leadership and people that could do some things for the church. Their local members are not that many, so a lot of the members of that church are people that have come from other places, listen to the gospel, get baptized, and then go somewhere else.
Yeah, we had a Zoom call where we had them from in Germany and Switzerland
And even Syria. You know.
Syria, I mean, so there were quite a few places.
Eleni went to Syria, I don't know,
Yeah.
3-4 months ago.
Yeah.
You know, so she will do that.
So I see several members of our mission committee. How many missionaries do we support total?
I think it's 14 between missionaries and organizations. Yeah.
Organizations. I think one of the biggest things that I would suggest is guys get to know our missionary and our missionary points. I think I see over here, and you know, we go to the City of Children every year, and I don't know if it was exactly when Orestes was born. How old are you now? 22. You're a year old. I think when we first started going, or 2 years old when we first started going, and to be able to witness you grow up at the City of Children where we went every year, and now that you're an active, involved member of this congregation has been an incredible thing. Oh, yeah. And you just, guys, you need to know, God is working in this world today. And it's not just here in our little spot, it's all over the world. Mm-hmm. And I think the last thing I would leave us with, maybe as we conclude, is what did Jesus say there in Matthew 28? As he's about to ascend into heaven, he gives what we call the Great Commission. Go, and make disciples. Does it say just of Nashville? Just of Green Hills?
Everywhere.
Of all nations. And we have a chance to do that very thing. And to go and visit our missionaries in Greece, to be able to experience bringing new Christians in the world. We know that they will go. And I think about that ripple effect and how those ripples will encourage so many. We appreciate you listening to us so much. This is something that we're passionate about. And I know sometimes it can, you know, we don't want it to look like, we didn't want to just go over every slide when, you know, it's like, oh, you got to take a look at our vacation. This wasn't vacation at all. Yeah. This was a work, but it was something that we enjoyed thoroughly.
It takes a toll, it is hard, but it is very rewarding.
Right.
And it is hard for them, hard for us, but at the end we know that we're all under God's love, and that's what gives us energy and willingness to go on.
Thanks for listening. I do know that we'll have a tent up at Fall Fest today that has all the missionary information of all our different sites. Appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, and if you have any questions, go and ask Mike Cochran, right? And then Vickle and Colbeck and myself, you know, and everyone who is part of the missions committee. Thank you.